Tonight, the murder that shocked the country, shook up the criminal justice system and resulted in the Metropolitan Police being branded as institutionally racist. Now, 20 years on from the killing of Stephen Lawrence, we look at what's changed.
The police are the people that, you go to when you're lost. The police are those nice people that will help you on the street, but after you've experienced stop and search, I think your perception of them changes.
We'll hear from the Metropolitan Police and also ask how British society and our views of race have changed. Good evening. It was the moment which was supposed to change the way the police in Britain look and behave, a moment which shocked a country to some of the realities of racism. The murder of Stephen Lawrence 20 years ago next week saw a black teenager killed because of the colour of his skin, but it also saw the Macpherson inquiry into the competence or otherwise of the police at the time, with the Metropolitan Police itself effectively on trial, accused of institutional racism. We want to devote a large part of the programme tonight to exploring what has changed in our institutions and society in those 20 years. Well, for their thoughts on what has changed since the Stephen Lawrence case, I'm joined by Sean Leopold, an Oxford graduate who works for an urban pop culture website and is also a marketing executive. The writer Drida Say Mitchell, Pastor Wayne Bown of the New Testament Church of God, the Reverend Rose Hudson Wilkins, who is chaplain to the Speaker of the House of Commons and to the Queen, and Assistant Commissioner Simon Byrne of the Metropolitan Police. I want to begin talking about the police if we can, because that was really what much of the report was about. I just wonder what your thoughts were when you hear young people say it does change your perception of the police, who we need, when you get stopped and searched and you get angry.
I think, firstly, I think it was a really interesting film, and I take the cue from what you said in your introduction, Gavin, really. You talked about how the police were on trial at the time of Macpherson and the Lawrence murder, and I think the analogy I draw, in a sense, we've been on probation ever since. So that some of the emotions and the stories there were very powerful. And I won't pretend that both personally and as a police service and the police force, we don't listen to those. I think since the Commissioner's come back in London, one of the things he's been particularly struck by is this story that was around about 18 months ago about if you're frankly a young black man in London, your experience of stop search was not a great one. I think the best thing we can do is demonstrate by deed rather than words. And we have listened hard, and I'm sure people have experienced both in the room and outside the studio about what the Met has done. And I think we've done some significant things, particularly around stop search, but there's more to do. So to give you some examples, we do less, so the number of stop searches have fallen. We do it more effectively, so about 1 in 5 people that we now stop, we get a result from, so we either arrest them or we find some evidence. And we do it more fairly because the number of complaints have fallen. Now, if you've taken all that together in a context where serious crime in London has fallen quite dramatically, because if you take the example again from the film, going back to Greater Manchester, my last force in actual fact, that serious youth crime which affects young men under the age of 25 has fallen by 1/3 last year. Street robbery in London, as I sit here today, is down by nearly 1/3.
You presumably, though, accept, the young man who said, I was coming from a Harry Potter film and I got stopped and searched, and it did change his perception. That still goes on, and that's not just a problem for him. It is a problem for you, because you presumably want to police with his consent and the consent of the rest of the community. Pastor, I just wonder what your experiences were of this, because, you're a leader within your community. Do you find that you should explain perhaps to some young people, look, this is maybe irritating, but actually it might also cut down gun crime, drug crime and so on, the things that we're all too familiar with?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's my duty to explain to those young people because I'm not always with them. And their experience is so real and so true that I can't say it doesn't happen to them. I will tell you this, though. Outside of my church, on a Sunday evening at church service, 2 guys were coming in who are members of the church, and they were stopped by 6 police outside, and they did not accept that they were coming into church. So what we do now as a church to kind of combat that sort of approach is to say, well, look, let us organise ourselves. So our church is a member of the Citizens UK, London Citizens, and we work with the Metropolitan Police and City Safe programmes. And we say, let's organise ourselves, let's get ourselves together. Because in truth, we can't actually expect an institution to actually cater for the needs of our community.
So the community, you're basically saying the community's got responsibilities, you've got responsibilities as well.
Yeah,
it's not just pointing the finger at the police.
Right, it's twofold. So it's 2 prongs of a fork, as it were. There is a job that the police have to do, but there's also a job that us as a community have to do. We have to organise.
I think I would have to say that there have been some changes over the 20 years, but not enough. And if I was writing a school report, I would say there is still a lot more work to be done, and that's the reality. You know, the police is only a small section of society, so to speak, and they are from the community. I think that there is still profiling going on, not just in your institution, but in other institutions.
Pastor pointed out that everybody's got a responsibility here, including communities. I mean, where's the problem? Do you see this as a problem, or do you see this as the beginning of opportunities, but it might take a very long time?
I actually not sure that I agree with the whole premise that it's a two-way thing, that the community has to do it along with the institutions. What we have is a very clear signal from the Macpherson report and recommendation: institutional racism. For the first time in society, we had to wake up to racism is not about one individual, it's not about a few rotten apples in a barrel. You're talking about institutions, and particularly in that instance, public institutions that are there to serve everyone. That's what we should be really talking about, I feel.
An American politician once talked about the bigotry of low expectations, and that does affect the community, though, doesn't it? If people think that you're not going to achieve, you might not achieve.
I think there's got to be something to be said, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I understand your point. No, I understand your point, but there has to be something to be said that what are we doing for ourselves? Are we educating ourselves? Are we mentoring ourselves? And that quote that you said from the book, there's another guy called, I think it's Dr. Woodson, Carter Woods. He wrote the book, The Miseducation of the Negro. And basically in that book he said that if you can train someone to use the back door, they will never seek to use the front door. And what has happened over the time, over a generation, is that unfortunately we have not, as a community, really taken hold of ourselves.
We'll leave it there. Thank you all very much. Thank you.